Captain Lee Sung-ho stood on the bridge of the UES Resilience, watching stars drift past the main screen. 3 months into their deep space mission, the crew had settled into a comfortable routine. They were exploring the edge of human space, looking for new worlds and making contact with alien species. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," said Park Ji-woo from the communication station. The young officer had been monitoring radio signals all morning. His face showed confusion as he adjusted his headset. Lee walked over to Ji-woo's station. "What kind of strange?" "It's a distress signal, sir. But it's not human. The language is broken galactic standard and the signal is very weak." Ji-woo's fingers moved over his controls, trying to clear up the transmission. "Put it on speakers," Lee ordered. The bridge filled with static and crackling sounds. Then a voice came through, high-pitched and desperate. "Please, anyone, help us. The Devourers come. My people die. Ship failing. Heading to human space. Please help." The message repeated several times before cutting to static again. The bridge crew looked at each other in silence. They had all heard stories about distress calls in space, but this was different. This alien sounded terrified. Commander Kim Da-eun stepped forward from her position near the weapons console. As Earth's military representative on the ship, she was always careful about first contact situations. "Captain, we should be cautious. We don't know who sent this or what these Devourers are." Lee nodded, but kept listening to Ji-woo's report. "The signal is coming from about 6 light hours away. Moving toward us at high speed. Whoever they are, they're running from something." "Can you clean up the signal more?" Lee asked. Ji-woo worked at his station for several minutes. Finally, a clearer message came through. "My name is Veltar of the Kithara Trade Convoy. 12 ships attacked by machines. Only 3 escape. The Devourers take everything. Convert the living. Please help. We have technology to trade." Kim Da-eun frowned. "Kithara? I've heard of them. They're crystal beings, very good at building things but terrible fighters. They usually stay far from conflict zones. If they're running, whatever chased them must be serious," Lee said. He looked around, the bridge at his crew. These people had signed up for exploration, not war. But the fear in that alien voice was real. "Captain," Ji-woo interrupted, "I'm getting visual data now." The main screen changed to show a damaged alien ship. It looked like it was made of living crystal, beautiful but clearly hurt. Parts of the hull were melted and debris trailed behind it like tears. "My God," whispered the science officer Han Bo-young. "Look at those weapon marks. Whatever hit them used some kind of molecular disruption beam. That's technology we've never seen before." Lee made his decision. "Ji-woo, send a response. Tell them we're the human ship Resilience and we're coming. To help. Give them our coordinates and tell them to change course to meet us." "Captain," Kim Da-eun said quietly, "are you sure about this? We don't know what we're getting into." Lee looked at her seriously. "Commander, that's exactly why we need to help. If something out there is powerful enough to scare traders into human space, we need to know about it. Besides, we can't just ignore a distress call." Kim Da-eun nodded, though she still looked worried. "Should I alert Earth Command?" "Yes, but don't ask for permission. Send them our status and coordinates. If this goes bad, they need to know where we are." Lee turned to the helm officer. "Change course to intercept best possible speed." The Resilience changed direction, its powerful engines pushing the ship toward the alien vessel. As they traveled, more information came through on the communications channel. Veltar's voice was clearer now, and the translation software was working better. "Human ship Resilience, thank you for answering. The Devourers are ancient machines. They appeared in our space 3 days ago. They do not negotiate, they attack everything that lives." "What do they want?" Lee asked into his communicator. "They say all organic life is inefficient. They convert living beings into machines to serve them. My convoy was carrying families, traders, children, all taken except those who escaped." The bridge fell silent. The idea of machines that converted living beings was horrible. Han Bo-young looked sick. "Captain, if these machines are that dangerous, shouldn't we call for backup?" Lee thought about it. Earth had a strong military, but most of their ships were near human colonies. It would take days for help to arrive. We'll handle first contact ourselves. If we need help, we'll call for it. 3 hours later, the Kithara ship appeared on their screens. It was larger than the Resilience, but clearly damaged. Pieces of crystal hull floated around it like a cloud of diamonds. They're requesting permission to come aboard, Jiwoo reported. Granted, tell them to use Docking Bay 2. Commander Kim, I want security teams standing by, but keep weapons hidden. These people are scared enough already. Kim Da-eun nodded and spoke into her communicator, arranging for Marines to be nearby but out of sight. 20 minutes later, Veltar came aboard the Resilience. She was tall and thin, made of what looked like living blue crystal. Her body reflected the corridor lights in beautiful patterns, but Lee could see cracks in her crystal skin and fear in her large prismatic eyes. Captain Lee, she said in accented but clear English, thank you for helping us. I was not sure any species would answer our call. We couldn't ignore someone asking for help, Lee replied. Tell me about these devourers. What exactly are we dealing with? Veltar's crystal body dimmed with sadness. They are very old, older than any known civilization. They appear without warning and attack everything that lives. They have ships that can destroy planets and weapons that dissolve matter itself. But you escaped. They can be fought. No, Captain. We escaped because they were busy with other prey. The devourers do not fight. They harvest. When they are finished with one area, they move to the next. Veltar's voice became very quiet. They are coming this way, following the survivors. Commander Kim Da-eun stepped forward. How long do we have? Perhaps 2 days, maybe less. The devourers move faster than any normal ship. Lee felt a chill run down his spine. Whatever these machines were, they had an entire species running in terror. He looked around the bridge at his crew. Good people, all of them. They deserved to know what they were facing. Veltar, you mentioned technology to trade. What kind? The alien's form brightened slightly. The Kithara are master builders. We have shield technology, faster engines, better sensors. If humans will protect my people, we will share everything we know. Lee made the biggest decision of his career. Jiwoo, send a message to Earth Command. Full military alert. Tell them we need the fleet mobilized immediately. Use Protocol 7. The bridge crew looked shocked. Protocol 7 had not been used since Earth's unification wars. It was the signal for total military mobilization. Sir, Kim Da-eun said, Protocol 7 means war is coming whether we want it or not, Lee finished. If these devourers are following the survivors to human space, we need to be ready. He turned to Veltar. We'll protect your people, but I need to know everything about these machines. Every weapon, every tactic, every weakness you've observed. Veltar bowed in the way of her people. You will have it all, Captain. But I must warn you, no one has ever successfully fought the devourers and survived. Lee smiled grimly. Well, they've never fought humans before. We might surprise them. As the Resilience changed course toward Earth, carrying its alien passengers and terrible news, Lee wondered if he had just saved a species or doomed his own. In 2 days, they would find out. The stars looked different now, less peaceful, more dangerous. But Lee knew one thing for certain: humanity would not run from this fight. They would meet these devourers head-on, the way humans always met their enemies. The age of human exploration was ending. The age of human protection was about to begin. Fleet Admiral Choi Tai-min was reviewing supply reports when the Priority Alpha signal came through. The old admiral had been in more battles than he cared to remember, but he had never seen a Protocol 7 activation, not in peacetime. Sir, his aide called from across the command center. We're receiving emergency transmission from the UES Resilience. Captain Lee is requesting full fleet mobilization. Choi set down his reports and walked to the main communications console. Around him, the Earth Defense Command Center buzzed with activity as officers tried to understand what was happening. Put Lee through, Choi ordered. Captain Lee's face appeared on the screen. Behind him, Choi could see what looked like a tall, blue crystal being. Admiral, we have a situation. Hostile alien force called the Devourers. They're following refugees toward human space. We need the fleet ready for combat. How long do we have? Choi asked. Maybe 2 days, sir. These machines destroy everything in their path. They convert living beings into weapons. Choi had been a soldier for 40 years. He could tell when a good officer was scared. Lee was terrified, but trying to hide it. That told the Admiral everything he needed to know. Understood, Captain. Protocol 7 is now active. All ships will be ready when you arrive. The communication ended, and Choi turned to his staff. You heard the man. I want every ship we have armed and ready. Contact the Galactic Alliance representatives and tell them we need to meet immediately. Within an hour, the Alliance Council chamber was filled with representatives from a dozen alien species. The insectoid Zephyrians clicked nervously in their corner. The ethereal lumina floated near the ceiling, their light forms pulsing with concern. The reptilian Saros delegation hissed quietly among themselves. Dr. Han So-young entered the chamber, carrying a thick file. As Earth's chief xenobiologist, she had been studying alien species for 10 years. Today, she looked worried. Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Choi began, we have a crisis. An ancient machine intelligence called the Devourers is heading toward our space. They have already destroyed multiple alien vessels and are pursuing survivors. Zixtal, the Zephyrian representative, spoke in his species' clicking language. His translator rendered it as, the Zephyrian collective questions human military response. Why do humans mobilize entire fleet for unknown threat? Because that's what we do, Choi replied simply. Dr. Han, please brief our allies on human military doctrine. Dr. Han stood and activated the main display screen. Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world. That means our planet actively tries to kill everything living on it every single day. The alien representatives made sounds of confusion. The lumina's light dimmed with what might have been disbelief. Earthquakes, volcanoes, tsunamis, hurricanes, ice ages, asteroid impacts, deadly diseases, poisonous animals, aggressive predators. Han continued. Humans evolved under constant threat of death. We learned to fight or die. She changed the display to show human military statistics. Other species developed through cooperation and peaceful evolution. Humans developed through competition and warfare. We have been fighting each other for thousands of years. The Saros delegate Kasahan spoke in his hissing voice. This does not explain human battle tactics. Your species uses strategies that seem extreme. Han nodded. That's because what you call extreme, we call normal. Humans understand acceptable losses. We know how to sacrifice some to save many. We invented concepts like mutually assured, destruction, and scorched earth tactics. She pulled up battle footage from human history. When humans fight, we don't just try to win. We try to make sure our enemies never want to fight us again. We call it total war. The room fell silent as the aliens absorbed this information. Finally, the Lumina representative, who communicated through color patterns, flashed a message. Query: do humans enjoy warfare? No, Han replied. Most humans hate war, but we're very, very good at it. Earth taught us that sometimes you have to be more dangerous than the thing trying to kill you. Admiral Choi stepped forward. The Devourers think they're apex predators. They've never met a species that evolved on a world where everything is an apex predator. Back on Earth, Lieutenant Commander Omin Siok was briefing his Marine company aboard the flagship Indomitable. The men and women under his command were the best soldiers Earth had ever produced. They came from every continent and every background, but they shared one thing. They were all volunteers who had sworn to protect human space. Listen up, Min Siok told his troops. We're about to fight something called the Devourers. They're machines that convert living beings into weapons. They've never been successfully fought before. Sergeant Lim Dong-hyuk raised his hand. Sir, what makes us think we can beat them if nobody else could? Min Siok smiled grimly. Because nobody else is from Earth, Sergeant. These machines are used to fighting prey. We're predators. He activated his own briefing display. The Devourers use fear and overwhelming force. They expect their enemies to run or surrender, but humans don't run from fights we can't win. We run toward them. The Marines laughed at this. It was true. Human military history was full of hopeless battles where humans chose to fight impossible odds rather than surrender. Our advantage is simple, Minseok continued. They think like machines. They calculate odds and expect rational responses. Humans are not always rational. We do things that don't make sense to survive. On the engineering deck, Kang Yu-jin was working with her team to prepare humanity's newest weapon systems. As chief engineer for the fleet's offensive capabilities, she had been developing tools that other species considered barbarically effective. The Devourers use energy weapons that dissolve matter, she explained to her team. But our new plasma torpedoes can punch through their shields. The key is not trying to be elegant. We need to be overwhelming. Her assistant, Pak Jun-ho, looked at the weapon specifications. These torpedoes could damage our own ships if we fire them too close. That's the point, Yu-jin replied. Other species design weapons to be safe. We design weapons to kill the enemy, even if it's dangerous for us. The Devourers won't expect that. As the fleet prepared for battle, Admiral Choi received regular updates from Captain Lee aboard the Resilience. The alien refugees had provided detailed information about Devourer technology and tactics. They use psychological warfare, Lee reported. They broadcast the screams of converted prisoners to break enemy morale. They show visual feeds of the conversion process to force surrender. Standard terror tactics, Choi replied. They won't work on humans. Our people have seen worse. Sir, there's something else. The alien, Veltar, says the Devourers always give a species one chance to surrender peacefully. They offer to convert everyone quickly and painlessly if there's no resistance, Choi laughed bitterly. They really don't understand humans, do they? We'll give them our answer when they arrive. The final preparations took 36 hours. When they were finished, the largest human fleet ever assembled waited in formation around Earth. 47 warships, each crewed by volunteers who understood they might not survive the coming battle. The alien representatives from the Galactic Alliance remained on Earth to observe. They had never seen a Deathworld species prepare for war, and they watched with fascination and growing fear. The humans move like a pack of predators, Zixtal observed. Their coordination is perfect, but their methods are frightening. Dr. Han overheard the comment. That's because we are pack predators. Humans learn to work together to hunt things bigger and stronger than ourselves. Now we hunt as a species. As the fleet took its positions, Admiral Choi sent one final message. To all ships, remember, we're not just fighting for Earth, we're fighting for every species that can't defend itself. The galaxy is watching. Let's show them what Deathworlders can do. The waiting began. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, ancient machines were coming to harvest a new world. But this time, they would find prey that had evolved into predators. This time, they would learn what happened when the hunted decided to hunt back. Earth's children were ready for war. The human fleet arrived at the coordinates where the Kythera convoy had been attacked. What they found made even hardened soldiers feel sick. "Dear God," whispered Captain Yoon Jae-sung from the bridge of the destroyer Perseverance. He had fought in 3 wars, but nothing had prepared him for this sight. The space around them was filled with debris from crystalline ships. But this wasn't normal battle damage. The Kythera vessels had been torn apart in ways that seemed impossible. Holes had been burned through solid crystal hulls in perfect geometric patterns. Pieces of ships floated in formations that looked almost artistic, as if someone had carefully arranged the destruction. "Captain," called his sensor operator, "I'm reading life signs in some of the debris, survivor pods." "How many?" 17 pods, sir, but the readings are strange." Admiral Choi's voice came over the fleet communications channel. "All ships begin rescue operations immediately. Medical teams to stand by." The rescue took 2 hours. When they brought the survivor pods aboard the various ships, the human crews discovered something that would haunt their dreams for years to come. The Kythera survivors were alive, but barely. Their crystal bodies were cracked and dim. Worse, they wouldn't stop shaking. Even when the ship's medical team assured them they were safe, the aliens continued to tremble with terror. Dr. Lim Hee-jin, the fleet's chief medical officer, examined Veltar aboard the Resilience. "Their entire nervous system is overloaded," she reported to Captain Lee. "It's like they've seen something that broke their minds. Can you help them?" "Physically, yes. But psychologically, I've never seen trauma this severe. These people are terrified of something beyond normal fear." Captain Lee sat beside Veltar's medical bed. "Can you tell us what happened?" The crystal being's voice was barely a whisper. "They came without warning. 3 ships, black as space itself. They did not demand surrender. They simply began taking. Taking what? Everything. The ships, the cargo, the people. But not to destroy, to change." Veltar's crystal form flickered with pain. "They have devices that convert living flesh into machine parts. They make the converted ones watch as they become something else." Lee felt his stomach turn. "The other survivors, can they tell us more?" "Some cannot speak anymore. The young ones saw their parents being converted. The machines made them watch. They said it was necessary for the conversion process to work properly." As the fleet's intelligence officers debriefed the survivors, a picture emerged of an enemy unlike anything humans had ever faced. The Devourers weren't just conquerors. They were scientists conducting experiments on entire species. "They study how each race reacts to the conversion process," reported Commander Kim Da-eun to Admiral Choi. "They seem particularly interested in psychological responses to trauma. So they're not just harvesting resources, they're harvesting information about how different species break under pressure." "Exactly, sir. And according to the survivors, they've been doing this for thousands of years." The briefing was interrupted by alarms throughout the fleet. Sensor stations across all ships began detecting the same thing. 3 massive objects dropping out of faster-than-light travel. "Contact," announced Lieutenant Park Ji-woo from the Resilience. 3 ships, configuration unknown. "They're big, sir." On the main tactical display, the Devourer vessels appeared as dark silhouettes against the stars. Each one was the size of a human battleship, but their design was unlike anything in known databases. They looked organic, as if they had been grown rather than built. "Fleet-wide communications," Admiral Choi ordered. "All ships to battle stations. Implement Formation Delta." Formation Delta was a uniquely human battle tactic. Instead of forming a defensive line, the human ships spread out in what looked like random positions. To alien observers, it appeared chaotic. But every human captain knew exactly where they needed to be. The Devourer ships moved slowly toward the human fleet. As they approached, they began broadcasting on all frequencies. "Organic entities," the transmission began in perfect galactic standard. "You have interfered with harvesting operations. This is inefficient. Submit to conversion and your termination will be swift." Captain Lee responded on behalf of the fleet. "This is Captain Lee Sung-ho of the United Earthship Resilience. We don't negotiate with machines that murder civilians. Murder is an inaccurate term. We improve organic life by removing inefficiencies. Your species shows promise for integration into our collective. Surrender now and preserve your unique biological characteristics for study." "Here's our answer," Lee replied. Then he switched to the Fleet Command channel. "All ships weapons free. Show these machines what happens when they threaten innocent people." The Battle of the Debris Field, as it would later be called, lasted only 18 minutes. But those 18 minutes changed everything. The Devourers opened fire first. Their weapons were exactly as described. Beams of energy that dissolved matter at the molecular level. The destroyer Courage took a direct hit and simply vanished, leaving only glowing particles where a ship and 200 crew members had been. But the human response was something the Devourers had never encountered before. "Ramming speed." Captain Yoon Jae-sung ordered as his ship, the Perseverance, charged directly at the nearest Devourer vessel. His crew didn't hesitate. They knew the plan. The Devourers had fought hundreds of species over thousands of years. They had seen every known battle tactic. What they had never seen was a species that used their own ships as weapons. The Perseverance struck the Devourer ship at full speed, its reinforced hull punching through the alien vessel's side. The explosion that followed destroyed both ships, but it also crippled the Devourer's ability to fight effectively. At the same time, human fighters were implementing another tactic the machines couldn't understand. Pilot Nam Hyarin led her squadron in suicide runs against the Devourer ships, using their small craft as guided missiles. "This one's for the Kythera children," she said over the radio as her fighter plunged into a Devourer weapon port. The explosion knocked out the entire weapons array. The third Devourer ship tried to retreat, but Captain Kim Hyun-woo of the cruiser Defiant had positioned his ship perfectly. The Devourers found their escape route blocked by humans willing to die to stop them. "Pattern Omega," Kim ordered. "All weapons, continuous fire. Don't let them escape." Pattern Omega was another uniquely human tactic. Instead of trying to disable the enemy ship, the humans simply poured every weapon they had into it until it was completely destroyed. Other species tried to capture enemy vessels for study. Humans made sure their enemies couldn't report back. When the battle was over, all 3 Devourer ships were destroyed. But the cost had been terrible. 3 human ships were gone, and 800 crew members were dead. Admiral Choi surveyed the aftermath from his flagship. Status report. "All Devourer vessels destroyed, sir. No survivors detected from enemy ships." "And our people?" "Heavy casualties, sir. But the mission is complete." Choi nodded grimly. This had been just a scouting force. The real Devourer fleet was still coming. But now they had learned something important. "Fleet communications," Choi ordered. "All ships, prepare after-action reports. Make sure you document everything. The main Devourer force needs to know what happened here." "Sir?" His aide asked. "They think they're dealing with typical prey. They need to understand they're facing predators now. When word of this battle reaches them, they'll know humanity is different." In the wreckage of the Devourer ships, automated systems were already sending data back to the main fleet. For the first time in their ancient existence, the machines had encountered a species that fought with controlled fury instead of desperate fear. The data showed something that confused their advanced artificial intelligence. These humans had chosen to sacrifice themselves not for survival, but for strangers. They had used tactics that guaranteed their own deaths to ensure enemy destruction. The concept was so alien to machine thinking that the Devourer's computers classified it as an error in their programming. But it wasn't an error. It was humanity showing the galaxy what Deathworlders were truly capable of when they decided to protect others instead of just themselves. The real war was about to begin. The intelligence gathered from the destroyed Devourer ships painted a horrifying picture. Deep in enemy-controlled space, a massive station had been built from the remains of conquered worlds. Nexus Station, as the humans named it, was where the Devourers processed their captured victims. The station contains approximately 50,000 organic beings in various stages of conversion, reported Dr. Han So-young during the emergency briefing. They're using them as test subjects to perfect their transformation technology. Admiral Choi studied the holographic display showing the station's layout. It was enormous, built from the metal and crystal of a dozen harvested civilizations. Worse, it was heavily defended by automated weapons and patrolling ships. The Galactic Alliance Council is debating whether to authorize a rescue mission, reported Commander Kim Da-eun. They're concerned about acceptable losses. "How long will they debate?" asked Captain Lee. "Could be weeks, sir. Maybe months. The Lumina want to study all possible approaches. The Zephyrians are calculating probability matrices." Admiral Choi made a decision that would define humanity's role in the galaxy. "We're not waiting for a committee to decide if innocent lives are worth saving. The fleet moves out in 6 hours." "Sir," Kim protested, "without Alliance authorization, this could be considered an act of war." "Commander, we're already at war. The only question is whether we're going to fight it on our terms or theirs." The human fleet that approached Nexus station was different from the one that had fought in the debris field. The surviving ships had been modified with new weapons based on captured Devourer technology. More importantly, the crews had changed. They had seen what the machines did to their victims. They had heard the testimony of survivors. The casual cruelty of the Devourers had awakened something primal in the human psyche. "Remember," Lieutenant Commander Oh Min-seok told his Marines as they prepared for the boarding operation, "we're not just fighting machines, we're fighting an idea. The idea that some lives don't matter." Sergeant Lim Dong-hyuk checked his weapon one final time. "Sir, the briefing said the station has thousands of converted humans guarding the interior. They're still technically alive." "I know, Sergeant, but they're not human anymore. The Devourers made sure of that. Our job is to stop them from making more." The assault on Nexus Station began at 0400 ship time. The human fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, catching the station's defenders by surprise. "All ships, implement Phoenix Pattern," Admiral Choi commanded. Phoenix Pattern was humanity's most aggressive battle formation. Instead of trying to minimize casualties, it was designed to cause maximum damage in the shortest time possible. Human ships charged directly at the station's defense platforms, trading hits for position. The destroyer Swift Strike took heavy damage but managed to knock out the station's main shield generator. The cruiser Relentless lost half her hull but destroyed 3 defensive platforms. Each human ship had a specific target, and they pursued those targets regardless of the cost to themselves. "Boarding craft, you are clear for approach," came the call from Admiral Choi as the fleet's guns silenced the last of the station's external defenses. Min-seok led the first wave of assault shuttles toward the station's docking bays. As they approached, the full horror of the Devourer's work became visible through the shuttle's windows. The station's hull was made from the bones and metal of dead worlds. Organic components had been woven into the structure, creating a nightmarish blend of flesh and machine. Worse, some of the organic parts were still alive, twitching and pulsing with artificial rhythms. "Jesus," whispered one of the Marines. "What kind of monsters build something like this?" "The kind we're going to stop," Min-seok replied. The boarding operation was unlike anything in human military history. The station's interior was a maze of conversion chambers, research labs, and holding pens. The air itself was poisoned with chemical agents designed to weaken organic resistance. But the worst part was the defenders. "Contact front," shouted Corporal Baek Soo-jin as the first wave of converted beings attacked. They had once been various alien species, but the Devourers had transformed them into living weapons, part machine, part flesh. They moved with inhuman speed and felt no pain. The Marines fought room by room through corridors filled with the sounds of machinery and distant screaming. Every chamber they captured revealed new horrors. Conversion, tanks filled with partially transformed beings. Research stations where the Devourers studied different methods of breaking their victims' minds. "Command, this is Min-seok," the lieutenant commander reported as his team reached the station's central hub. "We've secured the processing center. You need to see this." The central hub was a vast chamber filled with thousands of conversion tanks. Each one contained a being from a different species at various stages of transformation. Some were barely changed. Others were nearly complete machine hybrids. "My God," breathed engineer Shin Bo-ram as she studied the Devourer technology. "They're not just converting individuals, they're studying entire species biology to find the most efficient conversion methods." But she also noticed something else. "Captain, look at this. The conversion process has a fatal flaw." "What kind of flaw?" "The machines can't understand irrational behavior. Their entire system is based on logical responses to stimuli. But humans do illogical things all the time." She pointed to a series of failed conversion attempts. These subjects resisted the process not because they were stronger, but because they did unexpected things. They sang songs during torture. They protected strangers instead of themselves. The machines couldn't process that. Min-seok realized what she meant. They can't convert someone who acts against their own self-interest. The programming doesn't account for genuine self-sacrifice. The breakthrough came when they reached the station's control center. There, Sergeant Lim Dong-hyuk made a discovery that would change the entire war. Sir, I've found the conversion protocols, and I think I know how to reverse them. The process was horrifying but effective. By flooding the station's systems with recordings of human behavior, soldiers singing while under fire, parents sacrificing themselves for children, strangers helping strangers, they created a feedback loop that crashed the Devourer's conversion programming. Throughout the station, conversion tanks began opening. Partially transformed beings stumbled out, confused but alive. The machine's careful programming couldn't handle the concept of illogical compassion. All teams, begin evacuation procedures, Minseok ordered. We're getting everyone out. The evacuation took 8 hours. 50,000 beings from dozens of species were rescued from the station's conversion chambers. Many would need years of medical treatment to recover from their ordeal, but they were alive and free. As the last transport ship cleared the station's docking bay, Admiral Choi gave the order no one wanted to hear, but everyone knew was necessary. All ships, target the station for destruction. Full spread, nuclear warheads. Sir, asked Captain Lee, are you sure? We could study their technology, learn their weaknesses. Captain, some knowledge is too dangerous to preserve. This place dies here and now. The destruction of Nexus Station sent shockwaves through both the Devourer network and the Galactic Alliance. For the first time in their recorded history, the machines had been forced to retreat from a fixed position. But the victory came at a cost. 12 human ships had been destroyed in the assault, and over 2,000 crew members were dead. The far survivors were forever changed by what they had seen in the station's depths. Fleet communications, Admiral Choi announced as the human ships began their journey back to Alliance space. Mission accomplished. Nexus Station has been destroyed and all prisoners have been rescued. Throughout human space, the news was received with mixed emotions. Pride in their military's success was tempered by grief for the fallen. But there was something else, a new understanding of humanity's place in the galaxy. The rescued aliens spoke of human courage in dozens of languages. Stories spread of Marines who had risked their lives to save complete strangers, engineers who had worked to reverse alien technology just to help others, captains who had sacrificed their ships to protect evacuation transports. The Galactic Alliance suddenly saw humanity in a new light. These weren't just another member species. These were the people who answered distress calls from strangers and fought impossible battles to save others. But in the dark spaces between stars, the Devourer response was swift and merciless. If these humans wanted to protect the galaxies, weak, they would learn the cost of defying ancient power. The main Devourer fleet was coming, and this time they were bringing enough ships to glass entire worlds. The real test of humanity's resolve was about to begin. The Devourer response was everything Admiral Choi had expected and worse than he had feared. Long-range sensors detected the massive fleet 3 days before it reached Earth's outer defenses. Over 4,000 ships of various sizes, all heading directly for humanity's homeworld. Sir, we're receiving transmissions from the lead Devourer vessel, reported Commander Kim Da-yoon from the Earth Defense Command Center. Put it through. The transmission was different from the previous contacts. This time, the voice carried an edge of anger that seemed impossible for a machine intelligence. Human species, your interference with harvesting operations has been noted. Your destruction of Nexus Station was an act of unprecedented aggression. This will be corrected, Admiral Choi responded calmly. This is Admiral Choi Tae-min of Earth Defense Command. You're not welcome in our space. Turn around now or face the consequences. Admiral Choi Tae-min, your individual designation has been recorded. Your species will be given one opportunity for efficient termination. Surrender now and conversion will be swift. Resist, and your transformation will be educational. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in tense silence. Through the main window, Choi could see evacuation ships leaving Earth's major cities. Millions of civilians were being moved to underground shelters or transported to colonies in other systems. But most of humanity was staying. They had voted. In the face of an enemy that could destroy their world, humans had chosen to fight. Sir, called Captain Jiang Qiwan from the Orbital Defense Station, the Devourers are deploying an attack formation. Estimated time to weapons range, 6 hours. Choi activated the fleet-wide communications. All stations, this is Admiral Choi. In 6 hours we face an enemy that has conquered hundreds of worlds over thousands of years. They expect us to run or surrender like every other species they've encountered. He paused, looking out at the blue world he had sworn to protect. They're about to learn why Earth is called a death world, not because it's hard to live here, but because everything here learned to fight back. The battle for Earth began in space, above the orbital stations. The Devourer fleet struck with overwhelming force, their molecular disruption beams tearing through the outer defense platforms. But the humans had learned from previous encounters. Activate the minefield, Choi ordered. What the Devourers thought was empty space suddenly filled with explosions as thousands of hidden mines detonated around their ships. The mines weren't designed to destroy the alien vessels. They were designed to push them into specific positions. Now, Choi commanded. Earth's defense platforms revealed their true nature. What looked like simple weapon stations were actually camouflaged gravity manipulators. As the Devourer ships found themselves in predetermined positions, the platforms activated. The result was spectacular and terrifying. Earth's own magnetic field became a weapon, creating massive electromagnetic pulses that disrupted Devourer systems throughout their fleet. Ships that had been operating perfectly suddenly found their weapons offline and their navigation systems failing. Phase 2, Choi announced. Captain Jiang Qiwan had spent months preparing for this moment. As Earth's chief of planetary defenses, he had turned the planet's natural disasters into military assets. Weather control, this is Defense Command. Begin hurricane protocol. High above Earth's oceans, orbital stations began seeding the atmosphere with charged particles. Within minutes, massive storms formed over the planet's surface. But these weren't natural hurricanes, they were carefully controlled electromagnetic phenomena. The storms reached up into space, creating walls of electrical energy that disrupted Devourer communications and targeting systems. Ships trying to attack the surface found themselves flying blind through artificial tempests. Geological control. Initiate tectonic response, Jiang ordered. Deep beneath Earth's surface, human engineers had placed controlled charges along major fault lines. As Devourer ground forces landed in drop pods, they found the planet itself fighting. Back in Tokyo, converted humans emerged from their landing craft to find the ground splitting beneath their feet as artificial earthquakes swallowed entire landing zones. In California, volcanic vents opened to spew superheated gas at invading forces. But the most effective defense was the one the Devourers never saw coming: the civilian population. General Baek Yeonji coordinated the ground defense from her bunker beneath Seoul. As converted humans poured into the city streets, they expected to face only military resistance. Instead, they found something unprecedented. Every citizen is a combatant, she reported to Admiral Choi. The civilians aren't running, they're fighting. Teenager Ryu Sung-woo had been riding the subway when the attack began. As converted humans entered the underground tunnels, he made a decision that exemplified humanity's response to the invasion. Instead of fleeing, Seung-woo used his knowledge of Seoul's tunnel system to lead the enemies into a trap. He brought them to the deepest part of the subway network, then triggered explosive charges that collapsed 2 kilometers of tunnels. The converted humans were buried under tons of concrete and steel. Seung-woo died in the collapse, but his sacrifice saved thousands of civilians and eliminated an entire enemy assault force. Similar acts of desperate courage occurred across the planet. In London, an elderly woman named Mrs. Chen detonated her own home to stop a devourer harvester. In Sydney, a group of children used their school's chemistry lab to create weapons against converted humans. The devourers had fought hundreds of species, but they had never encountered a world where the entire population was willing to fight. Their programming couldn't process the concept of non-combatants who chose to become combatants. "Sir," reported Kim Da-yoon after monitoring enemy communications, "the devourers are showing signs of confusion. Their tactical algorithms are failing to predict human responses." "Explain." "They keep expecting logical responses to threats. When they target military installations, we protect civilian areas. When they attack civilians, our military units fight harder instead of surrendering. Their computer models can't account for it. In space, the battle had become a grinding war of attrition. The Devourers had superior numbers, but human tactics were proving devastatingly effective. Captain Lee Sung-ho, now commanding the battleship Indomitable, led a group of damaged ships in what appeared to be a retreat. The Devourers pursued, thinking they had broken human resistance. Now, Lee commanded as his ships reached a predetermined position. Hidden behind Earth's moon, a squadron of human vessels emerged from concealment. The Devourers found themselves caught between two forces, and the humans showed no mercy. All weapons, continuous fire, pattern Omega protocols, no survivors. The human ships poured everything they had into the trapped Devourer vessels. When ammunition ran low, they rammed the enemy ships. When their hulls were breached, crew members sealed themselves in undamaged sections and kept fighting. The turning point came when the Devourer command ship tried to execute a tactical withdrawal. Admiral Choi had anticipated this. All remaining ships implement Final Protocol. Final Protocol was humanity's last desperate gambit. Every ship still capable of movement formed up around Earth in a perfect sphere. As the Devourer fleet tried to escape, they found their path blocked by humans willing to die to stop them. This is Admiral Choi to all Devourer forces. You came here to harvest our world, but you made one critical error in your calculations. The reply came from the Devourer command ship. State your error assessment, Admiral Choi Tae-min. You assumed we were prey, but humans aren't prey anymore. We're the predators now. The final phase of the battle lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the space around Earth was filled with debris from both fleets. But critically, not a single Devourer ship had escaped. The cost had been enormous. Half of Earth's cities were in ruins. The orbital stations were destroyed. Millions of humans were dead. But they had achieved something no other species in galactic history had managed. They had completely destroyed a Devourer invasion force. As rescue teams searched through the wreckage and medical ships tended to the wounded, Admiral Choi received a transmission from the Galactic Alliance. Admiral, this is the Alliance Council. We've been monitoring the battle. Your victory is unprecedented in recorded history. It wasn't a victory, Choi replied wearily. It was survival. The Devourers will send more fleets. Perhaps. But today, you've shown the galaxy something important. You've proven that the Devourers can be beaten. Admiral Choi looked out at his devastated world. Earth would heal as it always had, and humanity would be ready when the machines came again. But this time, they wouldn't be fighting alone. 6 months after the battle for Earth, Admiral Lee Sung-ho stood on the bridge of the UES New Dawn, watching as the largest mixed-species fleet in galactic history prepared for departure. The ship itself was a symbol of what the war had accomplished. Human engineering merged with Kythera crystal technology, powered by Zephyrian energy cells, and crewed by beings from a dozen different worlds. Final systems check complete, Admiral, reported his science officer, Veltar. The crystal being had requested to serve aboard a human vessel after witnessing their sacrifice for her people. All ships report ready for departure. Lee nodded, still adjusting to his promotion. The original Captain Lee had died during the Earth battle, ramming his ship into a Devourer command vessel. This Lee was his younger brother, carrying on the family tradition of answering distress calls. Fleet. Communications, Lee ordered. All ships, this is Admiral Lee. Today we begin the first joint alliance offensive against Devourer forces. Our mission is simple. Find other species under threat and offer them the same choice we made. Stand together or fall alone. The fleet. That departed Earth's rebuilt orbital stations was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human military doctrine had been merged with alien technology to create something entirely new. Ships that could manipulate gravity like the Lumina, fight like the Saros, and engineer like the Kythera, all commanded by humans who had learned to protect others. On Earth, reconstruction continued under the watchful eye of Supreme Commander Choi Tae-min. His promotion to head of Alliance Defense Forces had been unanimous. No other species had ever successfully defended against a full devourer assault. "Sir," reported General Beck Yunji during their morning briefing, "we've received formal requests from 47 species asking to relocate to human space. They want our protection." Choi studied the reports. It was exactly what he had hoped for and exactly what he had feared. "Approved. But make sure they understand the terms. We protect them, but they contribute to the defense effort. No freeloaders." "And the devourers, sir? Our intelligence suggests they're regrouping in the outer rim." "Let them regroup. They're about to learn that we don't wait for enemies to attack us twice." The transformation of human space was remarkable. Within a year of the Earth battle, human colonies had become multi-species cities. The Cathara shared their construction techniques, helping to build cities that could withstand any attack. The Lumina provided energy technology that made human ships faster and more maneuverable. The Zephyrians contributed their hive-mind communication systems, allowing human fleets to coordinate perfectly across vast distances. But the most important change was philosophical. Humanity had found its purpose in the galaxy. Dr. Han So-young, now Director of Xenological Studies, published her landmark paper on what became known as the Deathworld Doctrine. "Humanity's role isn't to rule the galaxy," she wrote. "It's to protect it. We are the immune system of galactic civilization." The paper spread throughout Alliance space, translated into hundreds of languages. For the first time, species that had feared humanity's aggressive nature began to understand it. Humans weren't dangerous because they wanted to conquer. They were dangerous because they had evolved to protect. The proof came during the Battle of Kepler Station. Admiral Lee's fleet had been patrolling the outer rim when they received a distress call from a mining colony. The Devourers had returned using new tactics learned from their defeat at Earth. "They're not trying to convert the colonists," reported Commander Park Ji-woo, now Lee's tactical officer. "They're using them as bait to draw us into a trap." Lee studied the tactical display. The Devourers had positioned their fleet in a perfect ambush formation. Any rescue attempt would result in massive casualties. It was the smart, logical thing to avoid, which was exactly why Lee ordered the attack. "All ships implement Phoenix Rising formation. We're going in." The battle that followed became a textbook example of Deathworld tactics. Instead of avoiding the trap, the human-led fleet sprung it deliberately. When the Devourers revealed their hidden ships, they found themselves facing an enemy that had planned for their ambush. Lieutenant Commander Nam Hye-rin, now a squadron leader, led the fighter assault. "Remember, these machines think they're smarter than us. Let's prove them wrong." The fight was brutal and short. Human ships took terrible damage, but they never wavered. When the Devourer flagship tried to escape with converted prisoners, Captain Kim Hyun-woo of the cruiser Defiant made the same choice countless humans had made before him. All hands, abandon ship, set collision course with enemy vessel. Kim went down with his ship, ensuring the prisoners were freed and the Devourer command structure was destroyed. His sacrifice saved 3,000 alien civilians and eliminated another Devourer fleet. News of the victory spread throughout the galaxy. More importantly, word spread that humans had died to save strangers again. The concept was becoming less alien to other species as they watched it happen repeatedly. The Galactic Alliance formally restructured itself with humanity at its military core, but the humans imposed an unusual condition. They would only accept command if every other species had veto power over military actions. "We're not interested in ruling anyone," Admiral Choi explained to the Alliance Council. "We just want to make sure everyone who needs help gets it." The change in galactic politics was dramatic. Species that had been hiding from the Devourers for centuries began coming forward, offering intelligence and resources. The ancient machines found their 1,000-year expansion finally meeting organized resistance. Engineer Kang Yu-jin, now head of Alliance Weapons Development, created new technologies based on captured Devourer systems. But unlike the machines, human weapons were designed with built-in limitations. "Every weapon system has a safety override," she explained to the Alliance Engineering Council. "If any species tries to use our technology against civilians, it automatically shuts down." "Why build in such restrictions?" asked a SOS engineer. Because power without restraint is what created the Devourers in the first place. We won't make that mistake. The final confrontation came 2 years later, at the heart of Devourer space. Intelligence reports indicated a massive construction project. The machines were building something called the Final Protocol. Admiral Lee led a fleet of 800 ships, representing every species in the Alliance, on a mission to investigate. What they found was terrifying in its scope. The Devourers had constructed a weapon capable of sterilizing entire star systems. Worse, it was nearly complete. "Sir," reported Veltar from the science station, "the weapon uses quantum manipulation to collapse stellar cores. They could destroy every star in Alliance space." Lee made the same kind of decision his brother had made years earlier. "Fleet communications. All ships prepare for assault. We're taking that thing out." The Battle of the Final Protocol lasted 3 days. It was the largest space battle in recorded history, with losses on both sides reaching into the hundreds of thousands. But when it was over, the Devourer superweapon was destroyed and their main fleet was broken. More importantly, something had changed in the machines themselves. For the first time in their ancient existence, they had encountered a concept their programming couldn't process, an enemy that fought not for conquest, but for protection. The final Devourer transmission was received by all Alliance ships simultaneously. Query: why do you continue resistance when victory offers no territorial or resource gain? Admiral Lee responded personally, because someone has to stand between predators and prey. Today, that someone is us. The transmission ended, and the remaining Devourer forces retreated to the dark spaces between galaxies. They would return someday, but the Alliance would be ready. In the aftermath of the war, humanity's role in the galaxy was clear. They had become the protectors, the ones who answered distress calls and stood between the strong and the weak. New, human colonies were founded throughout Alliance space, each one becoming a beacon for species seeking safety. The Death World doctrine spread, teaching other races that survival wasn't about being the strongest. It was about being willing to fight for others. Admiral Lee returned to Earth for the dedication of the memorial wall, where the names of every human who had died defending other species were carved in stone. Millions of names representing the price of protection. "They died so others could live," Lee said during the ceremony. "That's what Deathworlders do. We pay the price so others don't have to." As he spoke, representatives from hundreds of species watched in respectful silence. They had come from across the galaxy to honor the humans who had given their lives for strangers. The memorial's inscription, written in every known language, read simply, "They answered the call." Above Earth, the New Dawn and her sister ships prepared for their next patrol. Somewhere in the vast darkness of space, another species might be sending a distress call, and when that call came, humanity would answer, because that's what Deathworlders did. They protected the galaxy, one species at a time, no matter the cost. The age of human exploration had ended. The age of human protection would last forever.